Welcome to Yankee Stadium.
In this episode of The Frieze, what can the Yankees count on from Luis Severino in 2022? Next, we'll take a look back at another oft-injured player who changed the narrative in 2021, Giancarlo Stanton, and what can we expect from him in 2022? Next, in case you missed the preview last week, the Yankees are expected to sign the #1 overall international prospect, meet Roderick Arias. Then, while we're on the subject of switch hitters, a look back at some of the best switch hitters in Yankees history. And finally, Patrick Hennessy stops by to play Spend Hal's Money. I'm Derek, this is The Frieze.
To left center field. There it goes.
Right now, pretty much every baseball writer, commentator, and Yankees fan has Luis Severino penciled in to be the Yankees' #2 starter for 2022. However, that's anything but a sure thing. In case you're new, here are some of the facts about Luis Severino. In his 6-year career, he's pitched a full season only twice, but he was terrific both times, posting a 2.98 ERA in 2017 and a 3.39 ERA while winning 19 games in 2018. He missed most of 2019, he missed all of 2020 with Tommy John surgery, and then he missed most of 2021 while having multiple setbacks in both his arm and lower body. Before returning to the mound late in the season, the name Carl Pavano was appearing alongside Luis Severino's far too often in the New York Post. He did, however, look fantastic out of the bullpen in limited duty. A noticeably stronger Severino tossed 6 shutout innings, 2 hits, no runs, and picked up 8 strikeouts, all in relief. So in summary, Luis Severino is great when he pitches, but he's only thrown 18 innings in 3 years, and it could be risky to his already iffy health to ask him to throw 175-plus innings in 2022, just saying. As I mentioned, he did look noticeably stronger last season, but is it enough to keep him healthy under the physical strain of pitching an entire MLB season after not having done so since 2018? Call me skeptical. Would the Yankees consider starting Severino in the bullpen in 2022 in order to stretch him out, especially if they go out and sign another pitcher? It seems unlikely to me. The Yankees like to bet on guys coming back from injuries as if they never happened. Ask Corey Kluber about that, or Troy Tulowitzki, or Brian Roberts, or Jacoby Ellsbury. It would be awesome if Luis Severino could return to form. He's one of my favorite pitchers ever. But how often do pitchers miss 3 seasons and then return to elite form? I can't think of any off the top of my head. Maybe you can. But it's something the Yankees should have a backup plan for.
He put it into orbit.
Ever since he caught fire in the 2020 playoffs, Giancarlo Stanton has seemed like a different guy. I remember thinking that he even looked more locked in during spring training last season, but after a slow start and some early boo birds, I figured he might be on the verge of being beaten mentally when he suffered a calf injury that landed him on the IL. But he came back, and to his credit, he was able to stay healthy long enough to get back onto the field. And since he started playing the field regularly, he's been a totally different guy. After taking the field and going 0 for 3 in his return to the field and his return to Miami, on July 30th, Giancarlo Stanton batted .312 over his next 225 plate appearances with 19 home runs and 51 ribbies. His OPS over that time was 1.012. He finished out the season 0 for 7, but was also one of the Yankees' lone bright spots in the wild card game versus the Red Sox. A lot of guys would have turned on the fans. Some would have never recovered from the merciless booing and the questioning of his basic competitive drive. But instead, Giancarlo Stanton got back up off the mat. He worked hard to change his body, and he lightened up on some of the weightlifting, and he's become more flexible, resulting in him playing 139 games in 2021, finishing with an impressive stat line of .273, 35 home runs, 97 RBI, and an 870 OPS to go along with a 136 OPS plus, meaning he was 36% better than league average offensively last season. His sprint speed has fallen down to the 13th percentile in the league. He can't run anymore, but he still hits the ball harder than anyone. He's hit at least one ball 120 miles per hour or better on StatCast in every season since 2015. Precisely 0 other players have done that. His average exit velocity in 2021 was 95.1 miles per hour, his fastest since 2015, and his launch angle sitting at 10.3 degrees, just shy of his 11.1 degree launch angle in 2017 when he hit 59 home runs, seems to be ticking upward. He was under 10 degrees each of the last 2 seasons. So while his overall athleticism and his speed has gotten worse with time, and yes, his durability will always be a question now, there's no doubt about his ability to hit the ball hard. It's improving with age, not getting worse as you'd expect. At 32 years old, he seemed to have adjusted well to the conditioning program of Eric Cressey, and there's no reason to believe that he can't have a few more 140-plus game seasons in him as a mixture of DH and part-time outfielder. Not enough outfield to wear him out, but just enough to keep his body loose, to keep him flexible, and to keep him in the action. Personally, I'm expecting another massive season from Giancarlo in 2022, maybe even his best as a Yankee. I think the scenario that the Yankees are looking for is that Giancarlo can kind of become the Yankees' long-term version of Nelson Cruz, a guy who's had 4 40-plus home run seasons and hit 292 home runs since his 33rd birthday. And he's not a bodybuilder either. He's just a big, strong dude who hits the ball very hard, and I think that's what the Yankees are looking for out of Giancarlo. Tell me what you expect out of Giancarlo Stanton this season in the comments.
Swing and a miss. Hit by him again.
The New York Yankees are once again expected to sign the #1 overall international prospect, Roderick Arias, this January once the international signing period opens up, which will not be affected by the lockout. Arias' scouting grades are as insane as they come, according to Major League Baseball Pipeline. First, let's take a look at the scouting grade system, which is one of the more nuanced and weird things about baseball that some casual fans may not follow all that closely, so I figured I would explain it. Baseball scouts grade players on individual skills on a scale from 20 to 80. 20 to 30 is considered well below average, while 40 is below average. 50 is average, 60 is above average, and 70 to 80 is well above average. For instance, Garrett Cole's fastball is one of the fastest in the game. It would be graded as an 80. Aaron Judge has as much power as anybody in the game. His power would be an 80 as well. Roderick Arias, who's only 16 years old, according to MLB Pipeline, already has major league average tools, and he's only going to get better with time. His hitting for contact tool is at 60, or above average for a major league hitter. His hitting for power, running speed, arm, fielding ability, and overall grades are all scored at 55, putting him somewhere between average and above average major league skills at the age of 16. He plays shortstop. He's a switch hitter. He's been compared to Wander Franco. He's got a great swing just by looking at him. And that's an interesting comparison to compare him to such a recent player as Wander Franco. We've heard former #1 overall international prospect Jason Dominguez compared to the likes of Bo Jackson and Mickey Mantle, legendary athletes from years gone by. But Wander Franco is fresh in scouts' minds, so the fact that there are some comparisons there make me excited about this kid's future. Again, it's not official yet. He's expected to sign on January 15th from everything that I've read. And then on we go. I don't think we'll see him much in the minor leagues this year, but he'll probably spend some time at extended spring training, and then hopefully next year they'll get him on the major league track.
High drive, right center field.
I'm loving what the Yankees are doing with trying to get more switch hitters into the system. It gives the manager filling out the lineup a lot more flexibility when putting together his lineup. It makes it a lot more difficult for the opposing managers to use their bullpen. Jason Dominguez could be in the bigs in a couple of years. He's a switch hitter. We talked about Roderick Arias, also a switch hitter. Even the Yankees' most likely new utility man is a switch hitter, Oswaldo Cabrera. Aaron Hicks, technically a switch hitter, but he almost never gets on the field anymore. That's another video. I wanted to take a look back at some of my favorite switch hitters in Yankees history, and we'll work our way down as if this were a top 5 video. First is Nick Swisher, acquired for Wilson Bettman, another switch hitter prior to the 2009 season. Nick was an instant hit with fans. As Yankees fans know, the organization can be a little bit corporate, with their no facial hair policy and just kind of having a stuffy vibe a lot of the time. Swisher, though, was not only colorful, but he brought a welcome injection of energy to the lineup, just made the team feel different. And he was also a damn good hitter. From 2009 through 2012, Swisher averaged 26 home runs, 87 RBIs, and an 850 OPS. He was selected to the All-Star team in 2010 when he hit 288 with 29 home runs and 89 RBIs and an 870 OPS. Jorge Posada is another guy we have to talk about. A really good offensive catcher, which we've seen in recent years can be a bit rare. Georgie had legitimate power from both sides of the plate. 275 career home runs, including 30 in 2003. He was third in MVP voting that season. He had a monster year in 2007 as well, batting .337 with a .970 OPS. He was a 5-time All-Star, won 5 Silver Sluggers as well. Used to pee on his hands to tough him up instead of wearing batting gloves. Mark Teixeira was another great addition during the 2008-2009 offseason. Yankees added a lot of switch hitting power that winter between him and Swisher. Overall, Mark sent 206 text messages with the Yankees from 2009 to 2016. Like Swisher, he averaged 26 home runs per season over his Yankees tenure, although a bit longer than Swisher's. He struggled quite a bit with the shift, and he had a wrist injury that zapped some of his power about midway through the contract. But overall, I think we call the Mark Teixeira contract a success because he helped him win a championship. Bernie Williams, we talked about him at length on this podcast, but any excuse I can use to bring up Bernie Williams, I'm going to do it. He's my all-time favorite switch hitter that I got to see. 1998 batting champion with a .339 average. He actually hit even better in 99 when he hit .342. His career OPS was .858, very impressive. I hope one day he gets considered by the Veterans Committee for the Hall of Fame. He was just such a vital part of that championship dynasty. The center fielder, the middle of the order hitter, clubhouse leader, never got in trouble. Although one time he did drive home from the stadium and he forgot to bring his son. And then a few weeks later, he drove home from the stadium and forgot his wife. True stories. There's no question that Mickey Mantle was one of the best switch hitters in baseball history. Some would say the very best. He does hold the record for most home runs by a switch hitter with 536. He won 3 MVP awards, picked up the 1956 Triple Crown, and hit 18 home runs in World Series play, winning 7 championships and 12 pennants. He also came very close to hitting a ball completely out of Yankee Stadium. Honorable mention, Tim Raines. He didn't play with the Yankees for very long, but he was such a great switch-hitting option off the bench from 96 through 98. You need that type of player on your roster.
I haven't done content in so long.
Oh my God, it's been a slow winter. So here are the rules for our Spend Hal's Money session. We get a maximum of 3 moves, right? And 2 of them are trades, and 1 of them is a free agent signing. I do that because the Yankees need a lot of moves, and I wanted to kind of illustrate that it's really tough to fix this team with a couple of moves. I mean, just a couple of moves. What did you learn from trying to put together your trades?
Listen, Derek, you know what I put together? I picked like my 3 moves, right? And then after kind of constructing the roster, I realized that the Yankees kind of need a lot more than 3 moves to kind of like make them look like a substantially improved team. And who knows when the lockout's going to end? It's going to be really difficult to make even 3 moves at that point.
I think they're going to have to make a lot of moves in rapid succession. And it's interesting because the longer the lockout goes, the less time that they're going to have to do this. I've been saying that for weeks. I don't know what the rules are between like GMs. Can Can Brian Cashman call the A's GM and negotiate a trade right now for when the lockout ends and pull the trigger? I don't know the rules on that.
I mean, if I had to like assume, which you know what they say when you assume things, but I would probably say that's probably allowed, right? Like, why wouldn't it be? Because the MLB can't ban discussion among GMs.
That's true. I mean, how are they going to know who's texting back and forth?
Yeah.
You know, so
send an Instagram DMs.
right, exactly. So my guess is that when lockout does officially end, you're going to see a flurry of moves. Boom, boom, boom. I don't think you're going to see free agents right away. I think you'll see trades break first, and then there'll be late signing free agents. Go ahead and give me your first trade that you put together. And we used a trade calculator from, I think it's called baseballtradevalues.com. So, you know, hey, look, if it's not fair, blame that website. Don't come bitching in my comments that the trades don't make sense. They made sense to me when I looked at them.
Yeah, I mean, because I was kind of calculating these trades, right? And I kind of realized one thing, first of all, before I do give you my trades. All these prospects that we kind of look at, like as the Yankees that we consider being very highly touted, the trade calculator doesn't consider these guys to have a ton of value. Anthony Volpe is one that has a ton of value. Jason Dominguez has a ton of value. But then other than that, everyone's kind of like middle of the pack. So my first trade, I gave the Yankees a legitimate center fielder, Derek. I gave them Ketel Marte, and then in exchange, the Diamondbacks get Domingo Germán, who honestly, listen, I've had enough of Domingo Germán over the last couple of years. I'm sure we've seen like a bunch of potential out of him, but I'm kind of done with it, just to be honest with you. And then attached with Domingo Germán is Oswald Peraza. If I'm being honest with you, as far as Peraza goes, I don't really see him as being like a future in the Yankees middle infield, especially when I look at the shortstop position. I either see it being Carlos Correa or Anthony Volpe, who I think is the more highly touted shortstop prospect at this point. So yeah, I think the Yankees get a legitimate center fielder. Ketel Marte could also, he's very versatile. He could play many different positions as well. Switch hitter, which I think is huge, fills the void of Aaron Hicks, who I think will still be on the team in a bench capacity, which I think would be solid. And I don't think you give up too much. According to the trade calculator, the Yankees are actually giving up 2 points higher value than Ketel Marte is even worth. So I think this deal would get done, and I think it would be a huge benefit to the Yankees lineup.
All right, so just looking at your deal, and you'll see I made some of the similar prospects and players available. I mean, I think it's a good deal. I like Ketel Marte. He's listed as a second baseman in your trade, but I think he would fit in nicely in center field. And I agree 100% on Hicks. I don't think they're going to can him because he has a lot of things that the Yankees like. He's patient at the plate, which they like. He is a switch hitter. They need more left-handed bats. They need outfield depth. So I think Hicks is going to stay on the roster, but I think he's proven himself over the last few years that he can't stay healthy. You know, he's done whatever the opposite is of proving yourself. He's anti-proven himself as a starting center fielder. He's got all the talent in the world. I mean, he makes those circus catches, but the arm isn't the same since Tommy John surgery. It's just not. And his swing is a little bit too loopy to me. But I do like his ability to work the count. As a bat off the bench, a switch hitter is a plus. A switch hitter with power, especially, because that creates problems for opposing managers. On a previous podcast, I talked about Bernie Williams. You know, they should have kept him around for that role. He kind of was in that role at the end of his career. But another guy that I mentioned early on in the podcast that you haven't heard yet is Tim Raines. Back in 97, 98, maybe 96 too. Although I think he was injured for most of the season. You know, he wasn't a stud power hitter or anything like that, but he was a versatile guy who worked the count, played some defense, and was a switch hitter. So I think that's a really solid trade on your part. And I got to admit, I love the idea of Ketel Marte as a Yankee. My trade, I went in another direction. I think the Yankees need a little bit more offense and a little bit more of a left-handed presence. My first trade includes two of the guys that you included. I'm sending Domingo Germán and Oswald Peraza along with Clark Schmidt to the A's for Matt Olson. Now, the value comes out as a slight overpay from the Yankees to the A's. I'm adding in kind of like a Yankees tax because the Yankees always have to pay more. But I think that, I mean, Oakland is a good spot for somebody like Peraza because he can learn on the job without any pressure, and he's got a ton of athletic ability. He's speedy. But like you said, Volpe is the guy, and he's a year or two away. So I trade for a shortstop, and we'll get to that in a minute, and I'm using Peraza as bait. And I include Clark Schmidt because I just don't think he's going to work out with the Yankees. His command has been too spotty. I agree with all the scouts and all the people who watch him that say his stuff is great. 95, 96, good hook. Does not matter unless you can throw it where you want to throw it. Let me get your second trade here because you had an interesting one in your second deal.
Yeah, and this is one that kind of pissed me off a little bit, Derek, because I kept trying so many different scenarios in the trade calculator, and nothing would like match out perfectly with the Brewers. But I acquired Josh Hader from the Milwaukee Brewers in exchange for Everson Pereira, which is one that honestly hurts me a lot.
That stings.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the, I'm pretty sure outside Dominguez, he's probably the Yankees' most hype outfield prospect, most likely. Yeah. And then you look at Clark Schmidt, who like you include in the Matt Olson deal, I believe. Just one of those guys who I think has a ton of potential, kind of like James Caprillion. I just don't think he's going to work out with the Yankees. I just don't see it happening. I don't see a scenario where he gets a rotation spot in 2022, kind of like the same scenario going into this season. I don't see it, so might as well include him in that deal. And then Alexander Vargas, a guy who, Derek, to be honest with you, don't know too much about. I saw him, and he has like the most value out of any of these guys, and he's a shortstop. So I kind of look at the Yankee shortstop prospects, and I'm basically gutting our entire farm system with these trades. That's essentially what I'm doing. But at the same time, I'm keeping the two guys that I'm kind of most hype about, and that's Volpe and Dominguez. Making these two deals and not having to give up either one of those, I think, is crucial. Vargas is just one of those guys who I don't see him being like a key to the Yankees' future. Sorry, Vargas. But especially when you're in the same farm system as Peraza, which he would be on the Diamondbacks now, but also as Volpe, and if the Yankees do sign any shortstop, he has no place on this team moving forward. And then you kind of acquire Josh Hader, and I think the Yankees go with that same philosophy that they went with a couple years ago, where they're not going to improve the starting pitching, but they're going to make their bullpen elite.
Going back in time, I would make that Andujar and Frazier deal for Hader 100 times in a row. But back then,
that for Cole too.
Yeah, but back then, if you would have made it, everyone would have killed you, giving away the farm, whatever. That just goes to show you prospects, right? They're prospects. They're not guarantees, suspects, and that's why. I mean, you're not really decimating the farm. You're trading some farm guys, but you're keeping the Dominguezes, you're keeping the Volpes. Realistically, of the Yankees, let's say top 20 prospects, maybe 3 or 4 of them could be legitimate studs. And you hope to hang on to the right guys so that they become studs with the Yankees. Usually they trade somebody, they become a stud somewhere else. Caprillion looks like he could be one of those guys. But I think that you've picked kind of some of the right guys. My only issue is Everson Pereira. He would be on my personal no trade list. I am emphatically on the hype train for Pereira. His swing, he's just got that easy pop. I see him just kind of throw the barrel at it and it goes over the center field wall. That's not easy to do. You know what I mean? But hey, look, Hader would turn you into an instant dominant bullpen. And you already got a very good bullpen. Clay Holmes, I think, is going to have a good year. Mike King, I think, stepped up, and he could be on the verge of one of those breakout seasons like Zach Britton had when he moved to the bullpen, because he's got command of that sinker now. He learned the breaking ball from Kluber. I'm big on Mike King this year. So, Hader would add a lot of value, and as a lefty in Yankee Stadium, I like it for a shortstop. I'm getting Isaiah Kiner-Falefa from the Texas Rangers. They just signed a shortstop. And I'm getting them to include Joe Barlow, who is a 28-year-old pitcher. He was a rookie last year, kind of a late rookie, but he pitched 29 innings, had a 1.55 ERA, and they don't have a great bullpen. I'm giving them a potential closer, Chad Green. He could step in as their closer and give them one good year if they're trying to win now before they have to trade those contracts in a couple years. I'm giving them left-handed pitcher TJ Sakema, and I'm giving them Luke Voigt. They have Nate Lowe as their first baseman. I mean, I think he's okay, but Luke Voit can also DH for you. You know, he could potentially in that hot Texas weather, and I get they have the dome, but the ball carries well in that dome. He hit his first home run last year in Texas. I could see him, if he stays healthy, 30 plus home runs in Texas. This could be a steal for the Texas Rangers. And the Yankees get a defensive whiz at shortstop. He's listed as a third baseman, but he's a really good shortstop. And he kind of holds serve for you until Anthony Volpe is ready. Hopefully next year. I don't think you need to make this guy play 2 more years in the minors if he plays well. Jeter was up at 21. A lot of guys are up at 21. Volpe's going to be 21 this year. I don't think you need to have our prospects constantly coming up at 25, 26. Yankees, I think, like to do that because that keeps them from being a free agent until they're in their 30s, makes it easier to let them go. And it's fucking horseshit. I hate that. But, and it's, excuse my French, but I'd like to see them get Volpe up if he's ready. But in the meantime, Kiner Falefa, I think, fills that role. What do you think of that?
Yeah. I don't know. Like Isaiah Kiner Falefa, cool player. But he doesn't really move the needle for me.
My argument is that you need guys like that. You know, you can't have a star at every position. You need some really strong defensive players in there. And I'm not going for Fields. I'm going for wins. You know, I'm going for run prevention.
The Yankees need a shortstop, do they not? And I want someone who's not Isaiah Kiner Falefa. I want someone who's not Andrelton Simmons. I want me Carlos friggin' Correa. Make us public enemy number 1. Put a target on our back. Carlos Correa will be the most hated Yankee by the fan base ever. Derek, he will get booed on opening day by half of the fan base, and that's a fact. Easy. I'm handing him out a contract, 8 years, $320 million. I was weighing in my mind. That comes out to $40 million a year. I was weighing in my mind. I was like, you know what? Do we give him like 35 a year and maybe go like 10, 11 years? Or do we break the bank, go 40 a year and give him 8? I was like, you know what? Give him 8 years. That's fine. And bro, $320 million over 8 years is not that ridiculous. Carlos Correa is a $40 million a year player. And it's not your money. I don't want to hear anybody complaining, Pat, that's too much money. Who cares? Like, I never understood people who complain about like how much money a player is getting. Bro, there's been people complaining about Stanton's contract since we acquired him. What does it matter to you? The Yankees could easily afford that contract and still extend Aaron Judge and still extend whoever they want. They can do it. It just matters whether or not they want to.
But I know that it would not only affect half the fan base, but I think it would have an impact on the clubhouse. I don't think it would make Judge very happy. I
disagree only in the sense that you look at Aaron Judge, right? And Aaron Judge is the Yankees captain, whether that's like official or not. As the Yankees captain of the clubhouse, he should be down for whatever helps the Yankees win, right?
Fair.
And Carlos Correa is the piece on the free agent market and the trade market that gives the Yankees the best chance of winning the World Series in 2022. He is the best shortstop by far. So if Aaron Judge wants to win, he wants the Yankees to be a good team, he should be down with Carlos Correa, and the clubhouse should be down with Carlos Correa, regardless of his part in the Astros cheating scandal for a few years.
My free agent signing, I'm going in a different direction. Earlier in the podcast, you haven't seen it yet, I talked about Luis Severino and his question marks headed into next year. The guy has thrown, I think, 18 innings in the last 3 years, and right now he's your number 2. And I don't know if you can really count on that. So I want to go out there and try and get a big number 2. And so I'm signing Carlos Rodon, 4 years, $84 million. That's $21 million per year. That's slightly less than Robbie Ray got. It's one less year, which I think is fair because, you know, he's only had one really good year and he wore down at the end of that year, like a lot of people did. I'm not holding it against him, but I look at his stuff. I see 98 from the left side with a hard slider, a good cutter, good command. Do you remember that game that he dueled with Jordan Montgomery?
Yeah.
That was one of the greatest games of the year. I would love to see that kind of efficiency out of a big, strong power pitcher again. You know, we haven't seen that other than Garrett Cole for a while. And having those guys 1-2 righty lefty 1-2 punch, you know, I'll take that in a short series as long as everybody's healthy. So Carlos Rodon is my signing. So we kind of went in different directions. You boosted the offense a little bit more than I did, I think. I boosted the pitching and defense. Patrick Hennessy, unhinged Yankees. Hopefully will be locked or unlocked out soon.
Bro, I tried to get an MLB headquarters the other day. They tackled me. So I guess the lockout's like still going down. But yeah, like Derek, I don't know about you, but I'm like getting real sick and tired of this. Usually like the off season, we have like these lull periods where there's nothing going on, but it's much different usually because we can always expect something to happen at any given moment. We're at a point right now because it's lockout season where we know nothing is happening. So what is there to talk about? What's going to happen afterwards? I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you know, I talked about this with Tyler Ward, your buddy, a couple days ago. My new buddy. I shout out to Wardy. I love Wardy. Great Mets
guy, but that's
great Mets content. But hey, look, I appreciate good content no matter who it's from. I watch a lot of creators. So shout out to all those guys. But you know, we were talking about how during the off season as a creator, you can feast on rumors and hype and you know, one newspaper article from some suspect writer that says, oh, what's his name was at a birthday party and he was wearing a Yankees hat or something. You know what I mean? Like you can make an entire video off that, but now it's like, you know, we really got to stick to baseball. Like we've got to think about next season and come up with other different ideas. And it's a real test. It's a real kind of a filter for content creators out there. And right now the MLB film room is essentially shut down. You can't grab new highlights. So I'm living off of highlights that I've downloaded during the season. It's not an easy go for content creators right now.
It's not fun. It's not fun at all. That's why like I had like this inner thought process in my head the other day. I'm like, do I even want to focus on the Yankees anymore? Do I just make my YouTube channel like a vlog channel? Do I just do live streams about my life, Derek? Because what am I supposed to do with my life? I'm doing like tier rankings, like ranking the Yankees 2021 players. You can only do that for so long. This might go on for 2-3 more months. What are we going to do? We might have to like do like dance tutorials.
Honestly, I'm going to start doing like cooking with Derek. Like, here's how you make some meatballs, that type of stuff. Patrick, have a wonderful new year. To my audience, have a wonderful new year. This has been the Frieze.